You've crashed on a hostile alien world, your ship a smoking wreck. The very creature that shot you down is now standing over you, armor glowing, horns curving back, a blade the length of your arm pressed cold against your throat. You're expecting a fight to the death. You're expecting hate. But the human diplomat Ethan Harlow didn't fight back. He didn't even raise his voice. He had a different plan. What happens when your enemy refuses to be your enemy? This is the incredible high-stakes story of a warrior, Sci-Fi Talvex, trained since birth to value cold duty over all else, who was ordered to execute the human. And the man who, in the shadow of war and a devastating conspiracy, taught her that the greatest strength is not found in a blade, but in a single desperate act of compassion. In a universe determined to pit them against each other, they chose to build a bridge. This is how two souls from two different stars risked everything to stop a war. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're ready to dive deep into this amazing tale of first contact, betrayal, and unexpected connection, smash that like button right now and subscribe if you haven't already. Now let's get back to the crash site on the massive violet-hued forest of Kethraven. The shuttle's hull screamed as it tore through the atmosphere of Kethraven, alarms shrieking in 3 different frequencies. Inside, Ethan Harlow fought the controls with both hands. The warning shot, which was far more than a warning, had punched clean through his starboard engine, and now the planet's gravity had him in its merciless grip. He slammed his elbow against the panel to kill the alarms, desperate to hear the wind and feel the descent. Through the viewport, the forest canopy rushed up at him. It was a massive sea of deep violet and silver that would either catch him and cushion the impact, or simply obliterate him. Ethan angled the nose up, burned what remained of his maneuvering thrusters, and braced for the inevitable. The impact folded the world instantly into a deafening mix of noise and searing pain. Metal shrieked violently. Branches shattered as they struck the hull. Ethan's harness cut deep into his chest as the shuttle plowed through ancient, immense trees, shedding velocity in agonizing, violent increments. Finally, it slammed to rest against something solid enough to stop the crushing momentum. The sudden, absolute silence that followed was somehow louder and more overwhelming than the horrifying crash itself. Ethan hung suspended in his harness, breathing hard, the coppery metallic taste of his own blood filling his mouth. His left shoulder throbbed relentlessly where it had violently slammed against the console. With shaking fingers, he unclipped the harness and dropped down onto the deck, which was now sitting precariously at a severe 30-degree angle. Smoke curled lazily from the damaged navigation panel. The hull groaned, still settling, and through the fractured viewport, he saw only oppressive shadow and twisted metal. Guided by sheer muscle memory, he found the emergency kit, slinging it quickly over his good shoulder, and triggered the hatch release mechanism. The door hissed open, admitting a rush of humid air. It was thick with the strange, pungent scent of crushed alien vegetation and ozone. Ethan climbed out into the deepening alien twilight. The forest pressed close around him, massive, enormous trunks rising high into a canopy that filtered Kethraven's twin suns into sharp, amber columns of light. His shuttle had carved a deep, obvious gouge through the undergrowth, a noticeable wound of torn earth and splintered wood. Ethan took only 3 steps away from the wreckage and stopped dead, every primal instinct in his body screaming that he was not alone. She emerged from the tree line like an ancient, powerful entity born from the forest itself. Her skin, a deep, striking crimson, caught the fading light, warm and rich like aged wine. She stood noticeably taller than Ethan, moving with the silent, deadly economy of a seasoned predator. Ethan felt his breath catch sharply as she stepped fully into view. Her armor was dark, heavy metal, etched with intricate patterns that seemed to faintly shift and writhe in the shadows, accented by a glowing cyan at her shoulders, pulsing with the steady rhythm of her heartbeat. 2 black, obsidian horns curved sharply back from her temples, framing a face dominated by sharp, uncompromising angles and a fierce, alien beauty. Her eyes glowed with a faint, luminous amber light, utterly and entirely focused on him. She carried a combat blade longer than Ethan's entire arm. Ethan raised both of his hands slowly into the air, palms open, consciously ignoring the sharp, protesting pain radiating from his injured shoulder. He spoke in halting Thalaran, the difficult dialect he had spent months diligently learning from Dr. Amara Okoye's linguistics files. "I mean no harm," he managed. "I am unarmed." The warrior, Sci-Fi Talvex, stopped about 10 feet away, her head tilting almost imperceptibly. Her intense gaze moved over him with clinical, calculated precision, instantly cataloging his injuries and carefully assessing his potential threat level. When she finally spoke, her voice was low and measured, each word shaped and delivered with deliberate care. "You violated restricted airspace," she stated. "Surrender or die." "I had clearance for a supply run to the human colony," Ethan said, keeping his tone carefully even and steady. "My shuttle was on a registered flight path." He paused, then added, "You lie. Check my identification codes." He carefully gestured toward his chest pocket with his chin. "I am a diplomatic envoy. My name is Ethan Harlow." Sci-Fi moved faster than Ethan could possibly track, closing the distance between them in just 2 swift strides. The cold, hard blade instantly pressed against his throat, forcing his chin abruptly up. Ethan kept his hands raised and completely steady, meeting those glowing amber eyes without the slightest flinch. "Why did you not fire back?" she demanded, her voice a low rumble. "Because I didn't want to kill you," Ethan replied. Something subtle flickered across Sci-Fi's sharp face, too quick and subtle for him to truly read. She studied him in silence for a long moment. Ethan became acutely aware of the heat fiercely radiating from her crimson skin, the faint metallic scent of her dark armor, and the controlled, disciplined rhythm of her breathing. Up close, he could clearly see the texture of her skin, smooth and resilient like soft leather, and the precise way her pupils contracted slightly in the fading light. "What is your name?" Ethan asked her quietly. Her eyes narrowed immediately. "That is not your concern." "It is," Ethan countered gently, "if you're going to execute me. I'd like to know who I'm talking to." "You talk too much, human." "It's one of our better qualities," Ethan offered, allowing a small, hopeful smile to touch his lips despite the cold threat of the blade at his throat. He was fueled by curiosity and an unfortunate, almost desperate optimism about the possibility of mutual understanding. With a sharp, sudden motion, she withdrew the massive blade and circled him, moving as silent and ephemeral as smoke. Ethan turned slowly in place to keep her squarely in his view, his hands remaining raised above his head. She stopped directly behind him. He felt the cold kiss of metal against his wrists a moment before he realized she had produced binding cords from her belt. "You will come with me," she commanded, securing his hands together with efficient, practiced movements. "Commander Zarn Draxus will determine your fate." "And you are?" he asked. There was a pause, brief but heavy, followed by her reluctant answer, "Sci-Fi." "Thank you, Sci-Fi," Ethan said. He carefully tested the bonds, finding them firm and inescapable, but not needlessly cruel. "Can I ask why you fired on my shuttle?" "You were ordered to leave Thalaran territory," she stated. "You did not comply." "I never received any orders," Ethan insisted. "My communications were perfectly clear until the very moment you attacked." Sci-Fi gripped his bound wrists tightly and pushed him forward, deeper into the dark forest. Ethan walked, his boots sinking into the soft alien earth, his mind racing rapidly. The entire attack made no logical sense. He had filed his flight plan days ago, receiving official confirmation from both human and Thalaran traffic control. Someone had either failed to relay that critical information or, far worse, they had deliberately withheld it. "Your armor," he said over his shoulder, trying to break the silence. "The engravings, are they campaign markers?" "Be silent," Sci-Fi ordered. "I'm just trying to understand your culture," Ethan explained. "Dr. Okoye says the Thalaran marked their greatest achievements in the metal, that every warrior literally carries their history." Sci-Fi's grip on his wrists tightened fractionally, almost painfully. "You know nothing of us." "That's why I'm asking," Ethan countered. "I'd rather learn than assume." They walked in silence for several long minutes, the forest deepening and darkening around them. Ethan noted the alien flora, the specific way the light shifted through leaves that seemed to almost breathe, and the distant, strange calls of creatures he couldn't name. Despite the intense fear and his critical situation, a thread of sheer wonder ran through him. This, he reminded himself, was precisely why he had chosen this dangerous work. The desperate chance to truly bridge the gap between species, to find common ground in an infinite, hostile universe. They moved through the dense, twilight forest of Kethravan for what felt like hours. Ethan, despite his bound wrists and aching shoulder, kept up a steady pace beside Sci-Fi, never once stumbling, never once complaining. He was watching her, cataloging her movements, her subtle reactions, using the few hours of data he had on the Thalaran species. He noticed the way she moved with an almost disciplined grace, how her amber eyes constantly scanned the perimeter, and how, whenever a deep forest creature called out, she'd flinch almost imperceptibly, a purely reflexive response of a trained hunter. He knew with an absolute certainty that this warrior was not acting alone. She was following strict orders. "We are not here to fight," Ethan stated suddenly, his voice quiet but firm. Sci-Fi stopped so abruptly that Ethan nearly walked into the hard steel of her shoulder armor. She turned, her expression unreadable in the gloom. "You are not here for any reason, human. You are here because I brought you." "No, I mean the human species," Ethan clarified. "The humans did not send me to start a war. They sent me with medical supplies, with agricultural data, with trade proposals. My mission was peace, Sci-Fi. I need to get to the human colony and transmit the data I was carrying. It proves my mission." "Data is easily fabricated," she scoffed, dismissing the concept with a wave of her armored hand. "Lies are your species' most common currency." "Then let's look at the facts," Ethan challenged, leaning slightly toward her. "If I was a spy or a military scout, why would I land in an unarmed diplomatic shuttle? Why would I carry medical supplies? Why would I have the exact identification codes that are supposed to be clear? And why, when you put your blade to my throat, did I not even try to beg for my life, but instead try to engage you in conversation about your culture?" Sci-Fi hesitated. It was a minuscule pause, a moment of silence where her disciplined facade flickered. Ethan, seizing on that tiny opening, pushed forward with the truth. "You and I both know something is wrong," he continued, keeping his voice low and persuasive. "I never got the order to turn around. My entire flight plan was compromised. It was a setup, Sci-Fi. Someone on the Thalaran side wanted my ship destroyed, and someone on the human side wanted me to fail. The only way you prove your duty and I prove my innocence is by getting to your commander, Zarn Draxus, and getting that ship's flight recorder data to him." Sci-Fi finally released his wrist and began walking again, faster this time, indicating his words had struck home, not by acceptance, but by the necessity of moving the dangerous situation forward. The trip ended abruptly at the entrance of a naturally occurring underground cavern system, a massive geological feature hidden by a waterfall of shimmering, iridescent liquid. Sci-Fi led him inside. The interior was cool and vast, and the natural stone had been reinforced and converted into a makeshift military outpost. Ethan's senses were immediately overwhelmed by the sheer metallic scent of ozone, the low, powerful hum of alien technology, and the sound of multiple voices in the harsh, clicking tones of the Thalaran language. He was shoved unceremoniously into a small holding cell carved directly into the rock. The door, a solid slab of energy-dampening metal, hissed shut behind him. He heard Sci-Fi's voice, sharp and professional, reporting to someone of higher rank. Ethan slumped against the cold stone, rubbing his chafed wrists. He knew that if he couldn't convince Sci-Fi, his chances of convincing a full Thalaran commander were next to zero. Hours later, the cell door finally opened. Standing there was Zarn Draxus, a massive, imposing male Thalaran. His armor was thicker, darker, and decorated with heavy silver engravings that clearly denoted a long, celebrated history of brutal combat. His horns were thicker, his movements heavy with a self-assured, intimidating power. His eyes, the same amber as Sci-Fi's, held only cold, calculated contempt. Sci-Fi stood rigidly beside him, her face impassive. "So," Draxus growled, his voice deep and gravelly, sounding like stones grinding together. "The human who refused to follow orders." "Commander Draxus," Ethan began, rising to his feet, ignoring the pain in his shoulder. "I am diplomat Ethan Harlow. I came in peace. My ship was on a registered flight path. I suspect the communication failure was deliberate sabotage." Draxus let out a harsh, rasping laugh. "Sabotage? You expect me to believe your fairy tales, human? Your species has been pushing our boundaries for 10 cycles. You steal our resources, pollute our skies, and now you send a pitiful diplomat with trade deals to hide your aggression." He gestured toward Ethan's emergency kit. "What's in the bag?" "A biological weapon." "It's a medical kit and my diplomatic data slate," Ethan corrected him calmly. "I carried the data slate to transmit the proof of my mission to both my people and yours. It contains the raw telemetry, the flight logs, and my full mission brief. It will show my clearance was confirmed by your own network hours before I left our space. It will show the precise moment the supposed turn-back order was deliberately intercepted and erased from my navigation system." Draxus looked at Sci-Fi, a flicker of something unsettling passing between them. Sci-Fi remained silent, her eyes focused on a distant point on the cavern wall. "Sci-Fi Talvex executed her duty," Draxus announced, his voice booming in the confined space. "She shot down a hostile target that violated restricted territory. She is a true daughter of the Thalaran Empire. You, on the other hand, are a trespasser and a liar." He turned to a guard. "Take the data slate. If it contains even one falsified line of code, the human is executed immediately. Ethan watched as a guard roughly snatched the kit. If the data is authentic, Ethan interjected quickly, it means a hostile element within your military is working to start a war. And it means Sci-Fi put her own life at risk by bringing me in alive instead of simply destroying the wreck, which would have erased the evidence of the conspiracy. Sci-Fi finally looked at him, her amber eyes wide with a cold, clear recognition. He had just revealed the true, deadly subtext of her actions. Draxus's own conspiracy would have been exposed if she had carried out the most efficient order: vaporize the shuttle. By bringing Ethan in, she had preserved the only tool that could expose the lie. Draxus slammed his fist against the metal wall, the sound echoing painfully. Silence, human. You try to turn my own warriors against me with your weak words. Your species is pathetic. Sci-Fi, do you vouch for this creature's outlandish claim of a conspiracy? Sci-Fi, maintaining a perfect, neutral posture, simply said, Commander, the human is correct that the shuttle, if vaporized, would have erased all the data. Bringing him in alive was the most prudent course to obtain the evidence. It was a masterpiece of military phrasing, validating Ethan's claim without expressing loyalty to him. Draxus scoffed, clearly frustrated. A waste of time. The data will prove nothing but your guilt. Now leave him. Sci-Fi, you will stand guard at the entrance. The moment the data team confirms his guilt, you will personally execute him. Do you understand your duty, Sci-Fi Talvex? Sci-Fi's gaze locked onto the commander's. I understand my duty, she confirmed, the words precise and chillingly devoid of emotion. Draxus nodded, satisfied, and stalked away. The moment the commander was gone, Sci-Fi returned to Ethan's cell. Her armor hummed softly as she pressed her palm against the containment field control. The barrier shimmered and faded. The data is being analyzed by Draxus's personal team, she said, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. They will find what they are told to find. They will find lies. Ethan stood face to face with the warrior who had nearly killed him. Then we need a new plan, Sci-Fi, he said. The only way to stop this is to get the original data slate, the one that will be rigged, and find a way to transmit the true, uncompromised logs to the wider Thalaran network, the one that is not under Draxus's direct command. If we can prove the order was fake, we can expose the entire plot. Sci-Fi looked at him, her intense amber gaze searching his face, looking for any trace of deceit. You trust me? She asked, a sliver of genuine alien confusion in her voice. I am the one who shot you down. I am the one who brought you here to die. Ethan met her eyes with a confident, open expression. I trust you because you didn't finish the job, Sci-Fi, he told her. You followed a protocol that preserved the truth, not the lie. That tells me everything I need to know about your real loyalty. Now, do you trust me enough to risk everything to save your species from a false war? Sci-Fi's jaw hardened. She was not accepting a friend, she was accepting a dangerous partnership. My brother, Raxar Talvex, is currently stationed in a critical communications center. If we can reach him, he can grant us access to the main planetary broadcast system. But getting to the communications center means crossing miles of restricted territory, and more importantly, getting past Draxus's immediate guards. She looked down the dark corridor. We need a distraction, human. A loud one. Ethan looked at his medical kit, now sitting on a table by the guard station. I think I can arrange that, he said, a determined, quiet resolve settling over his face. In my kit there is a seismic monitoring device. It's not a weapon, but it's loud and it's meant to disrupt magnetic fields. I need you to create a diversion to get me close to the guard post. The key to our escape is getting that device, and then we are leaving this base as fast as we can. The fate of 2 entire starfaring species now rested on a human diplomat's willingness to trust his captor, and an alien warrior's willingness to betray her commander. The cavern was silent except for the low, powerful thrum of the base's ventilation system and the heavy, metallic tread of the Thalaran guards patrolling the main corridor outside. Ethan and Sci-Fi stood pressed against the cold stone wall, the containment field now down. The moment for action was here, a terrifying, irreversible threshold. The device is inside the bag on that table, Ethan whispered, pointing to his emergency kit next to the console of the nearest Thalaran guard. It's shaped like a small, silver cylinder. When I activate it, it will emit a high-frequency magnetic pulse. It won't harm the Thalaran, but it will disrupt all unshielded communication and surveillance equipment for about 60 seconds. It's loud. It will draw everyone. Sci-Fi nodded, her helmeted head dipping once. She produced 2 small dark smoke pellets from a hidden compartment in her thigh armor. The moment the noise begins, I breach the console guard. I'll throw these to blind the security cameras in the main hall for a moment. You move straight, grab the bag and run for the west exit. It leads to the ventilation shaft. Do not wait for me. I am not leaving you, Ethan countered immediately. This plan only works if we both get out. We need the data slate, which is currently with Draxus's analysis team, likely deeper inside the base. Sci-Fi's amber eyes, visible through the slit in her helmet, seemed to hold a flicker of respect, but her tone was firm. The slate is inaccessible right now. Our priority is the network. The Thalaran honor duty above all. If I am captured, I am merely a soldier who failed a mission. If you are captured, you are a casus belli, the reason for war. You must live to deliver the truth. Go. Fine, Ethan conceded, recognizing the stark logic of her sacrifice. The moment I have the device, I head for the west shaft. Where do we meet? The old Skyseer's shrine, Sci-Fi said. 3 miles west of the waterfall. It's an old religious site, pre-Empire, mostly forgotten. No one patrols there. Wait for me until the second sun rises. If I am not there, you move on without me to find my brother, Raxar. Ethan took a deep breath, the stale cavern air thick and heavy. Let's do this. With a sudden violent shove, Sci-Fi kicked the metallic door of the cell, making it slam loudly back against the stone wall. The nearest Thalaran guard, who had been lazily leaning on his rifle, instantly snapped to attention, his plasma weapon raised. He is attempting escape. Sci-Fi roared in a flawless, panicked Thalaran. I need assistance. The guard, seeing Sci-Fi's superior rank in the open cell door, hesitated for a crucial half-second, torn between engaging the human and reporting the breach. Sci-Fi didn't wait. As the guard moved forward, she threw one of the smoke pellets. It hit the ground with a sharp crack, immediately spewing a cloud of thick, acrid smoke that momentarily enveloped the guard. Sci-Fi moved through the cloud, a flash of crimson and steel, incapacitating the guard with a single precise strike to the temple, rendering him instantly unconscious. The second guard, posted further down the hall, heard the commotion and spun, shouting into his communicator. Sci-Fi sprinted toward the main security console at the guard station. As the second guard raised his rifle, Ethan, using the thick smoke for cover, darted in the opposite direction, toward the table holding his kit. He snatched the bag, his fingers instantly searching through the contents. He found the small, silver cylinder. He flipped the activation switch. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. A shriek, piercing and high-pitched, tore through the base, vibrating violently through the very rock of the caverns. All the internal lights flickered, plunged into darkness and then came back on, only to dim to a weak emergency level. The Thalaran guards staggered, instinctively covering their pointed ears, though the sound was only slightly painful to them, its true purpose was electromagnetic. Console sputtered and died. The guard's communicator crackled uselessly in his hand. Sci-Fi used the deafening noise and the sudden chaos of the temporary power outage as her cover. She slammed her fist into the security console, destroying the local comlink. She then spun, intercepting the remaining guard just as he recovered from the shockwave. Go. West shaft, she yelled in broken, accented English, a final warning that cut through the noise. Ethan didn't look back. He ran. The west shaft was a deep, natural fissure in the rock face, secured by a heavy, manual hatch. He ripped the hatch open and climbed inside. He could hear the commotion behind him, the frantic shouts of the Thalaran, the clang of running armor, and the sharp, powerful sound of a physical struggle that he knew was Sci-Fi facing down a growing number of Draxus's soldiers. He scrambled deeper into the dark, narrow tunnel, pulling the heavy hatch shut just as the magnetic pulse finally died, plunging the base into an unnerving silence, broken only by the angry, organized search that was now beginning. He crawled for what felt like an eternity, the damp, uneven rock scraping his knees, the humid air heavy with the scent of raw minerals. After about 20 minutes, the shaft opened into a thicket of luminescent moss and small, alien fungi. He pushed his way out, finding himself high on a sheer cliff face overlooking a canyon filled with the violet forest. He was outside. He followed the cliff line, traversing the rough terrain until he finally located the Skyseer's shrine. It was exactly as Sci-Fi described. A circle of immense, ancient stones crudely carved with symbols that predated the current Thalaran script. The site was cold, lonely, and silent. He found a hiding spot behind one of the largest stones and waited, watching the eastern horizon for the first signs of the twin suns. Hours passed. The sky shifted from black to a deep, royal blue. Then the first sun, a scorching orange, began to paint the horizon, quickly followed by the cooler, smaller blue sun. Just as the blue sun began to rise above the horizon line, the exact deadline Sci-Fi had given him, he heard a faint, familiar scraping sound. Sci-Fi emerged from the dense undergrowth, not from the cliffside but from a lower, hidden path. Her armor was scorched in several places, and the crimson plates were smeared with what Ethan immediately recognized as Thalaran blood, her own or an enemy's he couldn't tell. She was moving with a noticeable limp, clutching her side where a plasma blast had torn through her abdomen plating. The blade was still in her hand, but it was now acting as a makeshift walking stick. Sci-Fi. Ethan rushed to her side. He saw the damage. The armor was melted and a dark, sticky viscous fluid was seeping from the wound. He quickly opened his medical kit, pulling out a sterile compress and a tube of powerful coagulant foam. "I told you not to wait," she said, her voice strained, laced with pain. "I told you I wasn't leaving you," he retorted, gently pressing the compress to her injury. He applied the coagulant directly to the wound, causing her to hiss in a sharp, alien breath. "Tell me how you got out." "Draxus's guards are fools," she said, leaning heavily on the stone. "They are trained to kill, not to pursue. They expected me to retreat to the forest. I led them on a chase, disabled their transport and circled back through the old lower access tunnels. I think I eliminated any immediate pursuit." She looked at him, her eyes intense. "We have no time. We must move. Draxus will soon realize what is missing, not the human but the truth." "What is missing?" Ethan asked, wrapping her side tightly with a field bandage. "The data slate? Did you get it?" Sci-Fi shook her head, a grim shadow passing over her face. "No. But I secured something far more valuable. I found Draxus's command log, a subfile in his personal computer. It has the original and censored order, the one that confirms the flight path was cleared, and the turn-back order was fabricated by him after I was launched. It proves he engineered the crisis and the humans were innocent." She then produced a small, crystalline data chip from a hidden recess in her armor, pressing it into Ethan's palm. It was warm from her body heat. "This is the evidence," she whispered, her strength fading visibly. "My duty is complete. My role in the military is over. Now you must fulfill your role, Ethan Harlow. You must reach Raxar Talvex." "We will reach him together," Ethan insisted, pulling her arm over his shoulder. "I can help you walk. Your brother is at the communications center, right? We're going there now." He looked at her wound, knowing it was severe. Sci-Fi looked up at him, her lips curved into a faint, exhausted smile. "Strength without compassion is merely brutality," she quoted, echoing a phrase he had unknowingly said back in the first confrontation. "You truly are something different, human. Thank you. Now let's go and save the galaxy." The journey to the Thalaran Communications Center was a desperate, agonizing relay of painful steps. Ethan half-carried Sci-Fi, her arm draped heavily over his good shoulder, her weight substantial even beneath the streamlined armor. They moved deeper into the violet-hued forest, following a faint, broken military path that Sci-Fi knew from her training days. The crystal data chip, the only proof of Draxus's treason, felt like a burning coal in Ethan's palm. "How much further?" Ethan asked, his breath ragged, the strain on his shoulder becoming almost unbearable. "About 3 more miles," Sci-Fi gasped, her voice barely a whisper, weakened by the internal bleeding. "It's built into a mesa, a natural fortress. My brother, Raxar Talvex, works the night shift. It's when the network load is lowest and security is more relaxed." "Will he trust us?" Ethan asked, pushing through a curtain of shimmering, silver alien foliage. Sci-Fi managed a weak smile. "Raxar and we have differences. He is an academic. I am a soldier. He believes duty is to the truth. I was trained to believe duty is to the Empire. He will see the data. He will know the truth. But he will see my face and fear the worst." She looked up at Ethan. "Be ready to convince him, human. I may not have the strength left for the argument." As they neared the mesa, the ground became harder, more rocky, transitioning from soft forest earth to volcanic stone. The air was charged with static, signaling the immense power source of the communications hub. They finally reached the outer perimeter, a chain-link fence topped with a humming energy coil. "We go through the maintenance access," Sci-Fi instructed, her eyes focusing with a renewed sharpness. "There is a power conduit tunnel 10 feet to the left of the main entrance." "I know the code." Ethan helped her drop to the ground. Sci-Fi, trembling with effort, pulled a small, specialized tool from her armor and accessed a hidden panel on the conduit cover. Her fingers, despite her pain, moved with the precision of a practiced saboteur. The conduit cover slid open, revealing a tight, dark maintenance tunnel. "This is as far as I can go," she whispered. "I'll draw attention if I move further." "You go. The comms center is level 3, substation 7. Ask for Raxar. Give him the chip. Tell him it's from the old Skyseer's shrine." Ethan nodded, taking the command. He squeezed her hand, a small, shared gesture of mutual respect, and crawled into the dark tunnel. The tunnel smelled of hot metal and grease. He moved fast, fueled by adrenaline, emerging 20 minutes later into a brightly lit, sterile sublevel of the station. The interior of the communication center was a dizzying maze of humming servers and glowing data displays. Ethan, ignoring the pain in his shoulder, made his way to a central elevator shaft. He took the lift up 3 levels and found substation 7. The main room was filled with Thalaran technicians, all focused on their consoles. Ethan quickly scanned the room until he found a Thalaran male who looked physically similar to Sci-Fi, though unarmored and wearing the simple blue tunic of a technician. He was intently focused on a data stream. This had to be Raxar. Ethan approached him carefully, keeping his hands visible. The moment Raxar Talvex looked up and saw the tall, battered human diplomat, his face went white with shock and immediate, crushing fear. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" "This is a restricted military installation," Raxar exclaimed, scrambling to his feet. "My name is Ethan Harlow," Ethan said quickly, keeping his voice low and urgent. "I am the diplomat who crashed. I was sent by Sci-Fi. Your sister." Raxar's fear instantly morphed into harsh suspicion. Sci-Fi? She would never betray her post. She executed her duty. She would never conspire with a human trespasser. "She did execute her duty, Raxar," Ethan pressed, stepping closer. "Her duty was to the Thalaran people, not to a corrupt commander. Zarn Draxus is using this incident to fabricate a war with the humans. Sci-Fi got out to prove it, and she's badly injured outside." Ethan extended his hand, the small crystal chip resting in his palm. "This is a command log from Draxus's personal drive. Sci-Fi secured it. It contains the true clearance codes for my flight and the timestamp of Draxus's fabricated turnback order. It is the truth. She asked me to tell you it is from the old Skyseer's shrine." Raxar stared at the chip, then at Ethan, then back to the chip. The mention of the forgotten shrine, a secret childhood spot only he and Sci-Fi knew, was the key. It was the absolute, undeniable proof that the message was genuine, and it was from his sister. His suspicion fractured, replaced by a terrible realization. He quickly snatched the chip and slotted it into his secure terminal. His fingers flew across the control panel, his eyes scanning the encrypted files. As he read the data, Raxar's face changed from disbelief to pure, devastating fury. "By the ancestors," Raxar whispered in horror. "He did it. He fabricated the entire incident. This data is pristine, uncompromised. This is undeniable proof of high treason." He looked up at Ethan, his breathing shallow. "We have to transmit this to the wider network. The Imperial Council needs to see this before Draxus's corrupted report goes through." "Can you do it?" Ethan asked, urgency boiling in his voice. "Can you bypass the security and send it to every major Thalaran command center simultaneously?" "Yes," Raxar said, pulling himself together, his academic focus now channeled into a desperate fight. "But it will trigger every high-level alarm on Kethravan, and Draxus will know instantly. The second I hit transmit, the station will be overrun." Before Raxar could even begin the sequence, the warning alarm started blaring. Not the localized alarm of a simple breach, but the system-wide military alert. Draxus had discovered the missing log file and had locked down the entire planet. The lights in the communications center flashed violently to a deep, emergency crimson. Suddenly, the door to the substation burst open. Commander Zarn Draxus stormed in, flanked by 2 heavily armed security details. His dark armor was menacing, and his eyes were blazing with savage wrath. "Raxar Talvex," Draxus bellowed, pointing a plasma pistol at the technician. "You are relieved of duty, and you, human, have sealed your species' fate. You thought your little diplomatic stunt would save you? I just finished reviewing the corrupted flight data. Your ship was full of aggressive military payloads. It is officially a hostile invasion. War is now declared on your kind." Raxar was paralyzed with terror, but Ethan acted instantly. He stepped in front of Raxar, shielding him. "Liar. The corrupted data is the lie. We have the original command log, Draxus. We know you fabricated the turnback order and declared the ship hostile after the fact. Your conspiracy is over." Draxus laughed, a harsh, cold sound. A dead man's word means nothing. And your friend Sci-Fi? A traitor. She is already being hunted. Her body will be proof that anyone who questions my authority will be dealt with. Now, stand aside, technician, and let me execute the human that is about to start your war. As Draxus raised his plasma pistol, Raxar finally broke free of his fear. His mind, honed by years of complex systems, snapped into action. While Ethan distracted Draxus, Raxar slammed his palm onto the control panel, his finger hitting the transmission key. The sound was not an alarm but a synthesized, deep Thalaran voice that cut through the station's chaos. Broadcast override. Imperial Thalaran network access. Priority alert, high treason in progress. The crystal chip's data, including Draxus's treasonous command log, shot across the planetary network, a devastating wave of truth that hit every major military and political leader on Kethravan. Draxus's eyes widened in stunned, furious disbelief. He knew he had lost. His plan was exposed. He spun on his heel and fired the plasma pistol, not at Raxar but directly at Ethan Harlow. Ethan reacted purely on instinct, diving to the side. The plasma bolt struck the console behind him, vaporizing the sensitive equipment in a brilliant, searing flash of heat and light. But Draxus's second shot was already tracking. Before the commander could fire again, the door burst open. Not the Thalaran security detail, but Sci-Fi Talvex, pushing the last of her failing strength into a desperate final charge. She didn't have her blade. She was holding a large, salvaged power conduit. She slammed it with crippling force into the back of Draxus's heavily armored legs, sending the massive commander crashing to the floor. The plasma pistol skittered across the floor. You will not start this war. Sci-Fi screamed, collapsing beside her fallen commander, the effort ripping open her wound. Draxus, a massive figure of pure rage, scrambled to his feet. He saw Sci-Fi, broken and bleeding, and he saw the human diplomat, the cause of his downfall, reaching for his weapon. With a roar of pure, unadulterated fury, he drew a small vibro-knife from his wrist sheath and lunged directly at Ethan. The commander was not aiming to injure. He was aiming to end the human's life and in doing so, still ignite the war he had desperately sought. Commander Zarn Draxus moved with the raw, desperate power of a cornered beast. His vibro-knife was aimed at Ethan Harlow's chest, a final lethal act of defiance to trigger the war he craved. Ethan raised his arms defensively, knowing he couldn't stop the attack. But a sound stopped the commander dead in his tracks. The other Thalaran in the room, the security guards and Raxar Talvex, were not moving to help their commander. They stood utterly still, their plasma rifles lowered, their heads tilted slightly as they listened to the broadcast that Raxar had just launched. Draxus's own soldiers were hearing the undeniable truth, the proof of his high treason, flooding the network from their own communication hub. Draxus's knife froze inches from Ethan's skin. He looked from the lowered weapons of his own guards to the face of his technician, Raxar, then back to the crumpled, bleeding form of Sci-Fi Talvex, who was watching him with a fierce, unwavering defiance. The spell of the commander's absolute authority was broken. He was no longer the undisputed leader. He was a disgraced traitor facing an uncomfortable, irreversible truth. Ethan slowly reached down and retrieved the plasma pistol that Draxus had dropped. He didn't point it, merely holding it as proof that the situation had shifted. Draxus let out a defeated, guttural cry, more of shock than pain. He dropped the vibro knife. His war was over. 3 days later, the immediate, dangerous chaos had subsided, replaced by a tense, fragile peace. Ethan Harlow watched through the observation glass of the human colony's medical wing as Sci-Fi Talvex slept soundly. He was joined by Dr. Amara Okoye, the colony's chief medical officer, a woman whose calm competence had been the bedrock of the human outpost for years. She'll recover fully, Dr. Okoye confirmed, adjusting her glasses. The Thalaran physiology is resilient even with that much plasma damage. Your quick work with the coagulant helped immensely. And politically, the doctor added, her voice softening, both governments received the data. Draxus's conspiracy is exposed. Peace negotiations are beginning. Dr. Okoye smiled knowingly. You're staying, aren't you, Ethan? Ethan nodded, a weary but resolute look on his face. I've been asked to serve as the chief liaison for the new peace commission. And frankly, Sci-Fi needs someone who understands what she sacrificed for the truth. Inside the room, Sci-Fi's amber eyes slowly fluttered open. She saw Ethan through the glass and her expression, which had been so sharp and fiercely guarded for so long, softened into a rare, genuine smile that transformed her face. Ethan entered the room, moving quietly to her bedside. "How do you feel?" "Alive," she whispered, her voice still a little weak but clear. She reached out, her crimson fingers extending toward his hand, a clear gesture of profound gratitude. "For what?" Ethan asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. "For you," she clarified. "For showing me that strength without compassion is merely brutality. I was trained to only know duty. You taught me the value of choice." Her fingers intertwined with his, their hands a striking contrast, human flesh and Thalaran crimson. Ethan leaned down, pressing his forehead gently to hers in the Thalaran gesture of deep respect and connection he had recently learned from Raxar. "We did this together, Cipher." "Yes," she affirmed. "Together." She pulled him closer, their lips meeting in a kiss that was not just between a human and an alien, but between two souls who had crossed the vast, treacherous chasm of fear and hate, a kiss that held promise, hope, and the absolute certainty of a new future. When they finally parted, her amber eyes glowed with something deeper than just biology. It was joy, relief, and profound purpose. "What happens now?" she asked, her gaze steady. "We build the bridge we fought for," Ethan said, smiling. "We show our species that partnership is possible. Together, for as long as you'll have me." Cipher returned the smile, a hint of her warrior spirit still lingering in her eyes. "That may be a very long time, human. I'm counting on it." Outside the window, Kethravin's twin suns rose over the horizon, painting the sky in a breathtaking palette of violet and gold. A new, bright day had dawned for two species learning the difficult, beautiful act of partnership in an infinite universe. The journey of Ethan Harlow and Cipher Talvex reminds us all that even in the darkest of times, the truth and a single act of radical compassion can change the fate of worlds. If you enjoyed watching the bridge of hope being built between two warring species, please show your support. Hit that like button to help us spread this message, share this story with your friends, and make sure you're subscribed so you never miss another deep dive story like this one. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Until the next story, wishing you all good health, great adventures, and a whole lot of peace.